Hello, everybody. How are we all? Sorry, having some technical difficulties as per usual. Good to see you all. I have just been meeting with some young people and teasing out of them some of their opinions and stuff like that about something that we might do in the future. And I think increasingly it seems like we will do after talking to them. So thank you to all those who were involved in that. Thank you so much for coming along and giving your opinion. It was great just to see you, but also great to hear from you. And it really matters what you have to say, and really matters that you're involved and stuff. So thank you so much. I'm going to pray for them and for this, and then we'll crack on. Dear God, thank you so much that we have young people who are willing to be involved in stuff that they will meet, that um, they want to know you more. They want to um, they miss their friends, they miss meeting together, and Lord, help us to meet a need which is there at this time. Help us to do something which is thoroughly exciting in a time when most things are pretty dull. Um, God bless us in what we're trying to pull off, and see it through. Amen. As we come to talk about David and being prepared, just bless us. Help us to have ears and hearts that are open, ready to listen, and feet and hands that are ready to act. Amen. Um, cool. Right. Running lessons number 2. And this running lesson is basically be prepared. I know that's a scout motto, and to be honest, I'm a boys brigade lad, so it doesn't sit particularly comfortable with me. Myself and my next door neighbour, who was big in the scouts, often have conversations where he's talking about building fires and putting up tents and stuff, and I'm going, huh? Um, I played football and did other badges and stuff like that. And yeah, it was great. But on this occasion, we're borrowing their saying. So be prepared, okay? Be prepared. As you may know already, I am type 1 diabetic, which means that when I go for a run or anything like that, I can't go unless I have my glucose levels at a certain point, unless I have some food with me just in case. Unless I've sort of done other stuff to make sure that I'm ready. So this is my insulin case, and I have long-acting and quick-acting insulin, Lantus and Novorapid, and I have to make sure that before I go for a run that I know that I've taken a little bit less of each of those, so that I can more easily manage my glucose levels while I'm running. And I also have this little doozy, which tests my glucose levels and lets me know whether I'm high or low or whatever. And so while I'm on the run, I will stop periodically and test with my phone, and then crack on. But it's important in all of that I'm prepared, because if I'm not prepared, well, it doesn't really bear speaking about what could happen to me. Many bad things could happen, and we don't want that. I don't want that, at least. So it's best to be prepared. Um, and I don't know about you, but like anyone who's doing anything, so most runners have all of this stuff that so like porridge and toast and cereal that they'll eat beforehand, but then they'll have high energy stuff that they'll take with them as well and have when they're running and stuff like that. So I have to take into consideration the food and stuff too. Um, but like anyone going on any kind of expedition, any kind of exercise, whatever, will need to put in some kind of preparation. You'll need the right clothing. You need to know where you're going, how long it's going to take you, what the right footwear, what you're going to put in your bag, all sorts of stuff. You need to know all of that. Maybe you need a compass, or maybe you need to make sure your phone's charged, and so on and so forth. You've got to be prepared before you go, don't you? And so one of my favorite characters, which I've mentioned before, is David, um, and David is probably most famous for killing Goliath. But the thing about David and Goliath is we often think this is a story, and we often pitch it as, you can defeat your Goliath, and what is your giant, and you need to go and defeat that, and so on and so forth. But this story isn't about David. It's not really about Goliath. It's about God. And for David, we know that God prepared him. God prepared him long before Goliath was about. So David was a shepherd. Um, and David, when he was looking after the sheep, he would fight off, not just fight off, but actually go after bears and go after lions and take the sheep out of the lion's mouth. And if the lion turned on them, he would club it to death. Okay, it's actually in the Bible. It says that. Okay, that's flipping insane. Like, imagine, can you imagine doing that? That's just insane. So God has, what is supposed to be a cushy job looking after a few sheep. Actually, there were all kinds of wild animals that wanted to come and take the sheep that the shepherd was looking after, and David would have to not just fight them off or scare them off, but actually go after them and get the sheep back. And so that's what he did. But the thing is, it's not just about what he was able to do. God had prepared David through that. But actually, as David is going through, David is just going to deliver food. Okay, when the Philistines and the Israelites are raging war. Okay, when they're facing off, and Goliath comes out and says, "If anyone defeats me, we'll all give in, and we will be your slaves," and so on and so forth. Okay, so and Goliath's like over 9 feet tall. All right, and he's huge, and he's got massive amount of like he's got heavy armor, and he's got a spear made of bronze, a bronze head, which is so heavy, and so on. It's just nobody wanted to do that. Nobody but nobody wanted to go ahead and have a go at him. And even King Saul, gave a reward. It was like, you will be looked after forever, basically. It's like winning a lottery. If you will go and defeat him, or even if you'll just have a go, just have a go. And we'll sort you out, we'll look after your family, whatever else. But nobody was prepared. But it wasn't just David's actions, okay? It wasn't just like his strength and his nous that God had prepared David with. God prepared David with a heart as well. David was a man after God's own heart. It says that in the Bible too. And David, when he went to deliver food to his brothers, he was kind of mocked by his brothers and scorned and like, what are you doing here? What's your problem, David? Why are you here? You're such an embarrassment, that kind of, older brother, younger brother thing. And David's heart was going after God. David knew who God was, and he knew what God could do. And so he said to these guys, like, he was disgusted by them. He's like, you are God's army. You are God's army. And you do not believe in God enough to go and knock this guy out. So David's heart was in a place of preparation, as well as David's strength and nous and actions. And he had this. God had prepared both his heart for this and prepared him physically for this. But it wasn't just a case of God preparing him for this, okay? David's heart being prepared meant that he was ready for a fight, okay? And I never realized this before, but it says that with the first stone, okay, so with one stone pretty much, David hit Goliath straight between the eyes, knocked him down, and then David chopped off his head with Goliath's sword, okay, gruesome, right? But it also says before that David picked up 5 stones, okay? So not only was David prepared in his heart to take Goliath on, but David was prepared for an even bigger fight than Goliath gave him. David was prepared to go even further than what actually ended up being asked of him. David was ready. David was ready for anything. He picked up 5 stones. He knew that God had prepared him, and that putting on someone else's armor, King Saul's armor, was not going to cut it. He knew that he needed to rely on the gifts and the skills that God had given him to pull off this amazing feat. He knew all of that. And so he went, and he stepped up, and he stepped out, and he took Goliath on, and he defeated him with the first stone. Sometimes we're not even willing to anonymously throw the stone from further away at Goliath. We're so afraid, and our hearts are not prepared enough, and nobody else has prepared our hearts enough, and that actually we end up just going, I'm gonna throw this little tiny stone, which actually won't make any difference, but I'm gonna throw it anyway because other people will see me throw it, and then that'll be great. So they'll think that I've done something, but I haven't really done anything. Nothing ventured. That literally, there's no end to that. It's just nothing ventured. Okay, there's no risk involved because we're not prepared. We're not prepared for what God has asked us. We're not prepared to let God win the day because we are not prepared to take the risk on God's behalf. It's a bit like, if you actually put this into real terms for us, okay? Imagine you're going into an exam, okay? And you haven't been to any of the classes all year, and you haven't done any studying, and you're just going in blind, and you're expecting to win. You're expecting to get 100%, A star plus 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 plus. Okay, they're gonna name the exam after you for next year because you did so well. That's your expectations, but in actual fact, you've not prepared in any way, shape, or form. You've not yielded to the idea of study. Okay, imagine that is the case. It's ridiculous to think that, isn't it? It's ridiculous to think that would work, and yet on a daily basis, that's pretty much how we act. We act like, I am not going to prepare at all. I'm not going to listen to God. I'm not going to do anything He's telling me. But the next time something big comes along that might be an issue, the next time something comes along that might hurt, I expect God that He will protect me and prepare me and will just have me ready. I'll just be ready because, I'm saved and in the meeting. Because I sit in a pew on a Sunday. Because I do churchy things. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Who would ever think that that's the case? Okay? God is preparing you. You've got to listen though. David listened and David paid attention, and that's why David's heart was ready, because he was paying attention to what God was saying to him. He was paying attention and learning the lessons that God was sending his way. When God sent him a lion, he didn't go, that lion can have that sheep. He didn't go, that's a big bear. 99 out of 100 sheep's not bad. We'll just go with that. No. He knew that it was important that sheep was just as important as the rest of them, and that sheep had to be protected. And so he went and he got the sheep. I can't even picture in my head how he did this, by the way. I don't know if you can. But he went and got the sheep. He brought it back. He killed the beast. And he learnt the lesson. So are you learning the lesson? Are you learning the lesson as you go? Adrian was talking this morning about Bible study and prayer and stuff like that, and actually he used one of the verses that I had already prepared to use tonight, which is pretty cool. But are you preparing yourself? Are you actually learning any lessons that God's sending your way? Are you learning what it says in His Word? Are you listening to His Spirit? Are you taking advice? And are you learning? Are you being prepared?
Are we all? Sorry, having some technical difficulties.
If you're not, then why not? If you're not, then it might explain why you're not fully invested in church. It might explain why you're not fully sold out on God. Because actually, you've got your fingers in your ears and you're not listening. Actually, you're expecting success without any effort on your part whatsoever. If I went out, okay, and I had normal glucose levels for sitting in the living room watching TV, and I went out for a 5 mile run, I would most likely go into a diabetic coma. I would actually be putting myself at risk of death because I wasn't prepared. When we don't actually pay attention to what God is telling us, when we don't do that, that's what we're doing spiritually. That's what we're doing. We're putting ourselves at risk of spiritual death. We're putting ourselves at risk of just falling away, of doing nothing, of just sitting, of just being part of an institution, not of a movement, being part of something which is can be sterile and just fits us and our comfort zone, and not part of something which is brave and forward moving and forgiving and reconciling and so on and so forth. Not something which is exciting to be a part of and that goes and meets needs and all of those amazing things that we're called to do as Christians. When we don't prepare by listening to God through His Word, through prayer, through studying together, then we only set ourselves up for failure. And the thing is, it's really simple. I mean, in Matthew 7, right? Matthew 7, verse 7, it says, and you need to read around this, okay? Read around the other verses. But it says this: ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. He who seeks finds. And to him who knocks, the door will be opened. The number of conversations I've had over the years with people who it's just not for me. That thing, it's okay for you, but it's not for me. And then you poke a little harder and you say, well, have you ever actually tried? Have you ever actually tried to listen to God? Have you ever actually given Him any time whatsoever? Have you ever read His Bible? Have you ever yielded your own ego to the point where He might have something to say to you? And when you poke, you find out that actually the God that they thought they knew is not God, but it's themselves, or it's ego, or it's money, or it's something else that they follow, but it's not actually God. And God is giving this open invitation. Go ahead, ask me. Ask me. I dare you, ask me. Seek me. Try and find me. Come on, ask. If you seek me, you're going to find me. You know what I mean? Knock and the door will be opened. If you knock, I'll open the door. If you knock, I'll open the door. But you're not knocking. You're not seeking. You're not asking. What are you doing? This is a really simple one. Really simple. Be prepared. Be prepared. That means rely on God. In what ways has God been preparing you to do His thing? In what ways have you been fighting that? And what ways do you need to let go of the thing that's inside that's making you hold back? What is it that you need to let go of? What part of your ego or your personality do you need to set down and realize that that's not of God? Is it intellect? Are you worried that you'll seem stupid? Are you worried that you won't be in charge? Are you worried that God will ask you to give people money that you quite like using? Are you worried that God will make you give time and you really love binging box sets on Netflix? Are you worried that God will make you look stupid in front of that girl or guy that you really like? Are you worried that, you know, could be that you have same sex attraction and that God doesn't necessarily want you to do anything with that, um, but he might want you to yield that, or that you have been watching porn and God will not want you to do that, and so you ignore him because it's easier. Be prepared. Get stuck into his word. Ask people who love God and are excited about him to tell you about him, to tell you their stories of amazing things and how God provided. They will have stories. They will have real life stories of how God has provided. Ask, seek, knock, learn, learn together, yield, yield to the Spirit. Be prepared. God, help us. Help us to give in, but also help us to be prepared, to get off our butts and do something, and at the same time yield what we have built up in us to guard us from things that might hurt us, that are actually guarding us from you and the promises that you have for us. Lord, bless us as we think on these things. Amen. Amen. See you guys. Thank you so much for coming and listening and taking part. Do get in touch. We'd love to hear from any